Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of the Spotlight live video podcast. We have an amazingly cool show today. My name is Blake Ryder, and I am the Director of Hospitality Research right here at Lighthouse. And with me, as always, is the man with the golden vocal timbre, Mr. Daniel Foreman. Daniel, who are you? Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is Daniel Foreman. I am a commercial strategist here at Lighthouse, and we are very excited today to bring you some 2025 trends. We're going to do a retrospective of some of the trends that we saw in 2025, but we are also going to look ahead to 2026 and see what is coming down the pike.
Totally. And we should mention that right now, live on our website, mylighthouse.com. If you go to the resources section and then to the blog, there are two articles that are kind of accompanying pieces for this podcast. So if you go there, you can find one that is a 2025 look back, one that is a 2026 look ahead. So if you want to read that for more supporting information, please feel free to do that. They're great pieces, and you can find them easily. Again, mylighthouse.com. We have a lot to get through today. We have 7 trends that we've identified as part of our 2025 look back, 10 trends that we've identified for our 2026 look ahead, and we are going to get through all of that today. So let us get right into it and kick it off. Daniel, I'm going to kick it over to you to do our first topic. Divergence in spending power opens up performance differences. Daniel, talk to me about what that means.
So you may have heard lots of terms thrown around recently, like a K-shaped recovery or bifurcation, things like that. What that means is that global household finances in 2025 remained under significant pressure, but the effects were very, very uneven. So that also means that wealth accumulation, wage growth, things like that were concentrated amongst the highest income households. So it's the middle and lower income travelers that are struggling with those rising costs and therefore having to cut back on some of that travel spend. So there was this really good Moody's analytics report that came out that showed that the top 10% of U.S. earners are currently accounting for half of all consumer spending, which is absolutely crazy to think about.
Crazy stat.
Yep. And so that is leading to stronger performance for the luxury end of the market. So those are the folks that are traveling right now and maintaining that travel spend, the really, really high spend. There's a really big gap right now that's kind of opening up between, say, 5-star hotels and the 3-star hotels. And it tends to be that luxury hotel that's kind of more insulated right now. But again, a lot of travelers are having to kind of curtail the travel spend right now.
Yeah, as we're seeing, it's kind of, if you think about, I don't know if haves and have-nots is the right term, but like households earning over $100,000, that is representing 45% of seasonal travelers right now, people that are traveling for the holiday season. So that bifurcation is definitely real. Okay, let's move on to our next trend. And what we see here is the will to travel remained. So the key here is that budgets are tightening, okay? We know that. The expenses, the trips to the grocery store are becoming more and more expensive. The costs are not getting lower, but people desire to travel resilient. The kind of key pivot here is that it is now value-seeking behavior. It's maintaining or even increasing trip frequency, but reducing the per trip spend. So what's interesting is that if you look at some stats, U.S. holiday travel intention reached its highest share since pre-pandemic years, even though budgets were down 20%, which is awesome that people are still making sure they do it. But I mean, that's the U.S. If we look at China, China's Golden Week saw 888 million trips, but the per person spend fell to the lowest level since 2022. Europe, model of consistency. Per the ETC, the European Travel Commission, travel expenditures as a share of consumer spending rose to 3.1% above long-term averages. So Europe, it's really, as we're talking about, it's this bifurcation. We're seeing inconsistent recovery across different markets. But again, enthusiasm for travel remains strong. It's affordability, it's value. And honestly, if you think about what that means for hoteliers, for you guys watching this, precision, personalization, and capturing value-conscious travelers, that's going to really determine who will win 2026. Daniel, U.S. travel market faced heavy headwinds in H2. Talk to us.
All right, so let's get into this third trend that we saw in 2025. Really quick, shameless plug. We actually did an entire webinar on this called The Impact of Uncertainty, where if you want to get into more detail about some of these points that I'm about to explain, that's a really good webinar to go back and watch. But let's talk about what happened throughout the year. If you're a hotelier, you may already know this, but the year actually started pretty strong in 2025. So there was good pricing growth in January and February, but as soon as we got into the early spring time of year, that's when we started to see really big year-over-year pricing drops. Conditions deteriorated rapidly in the second half of the year, especially, and there were a lot of reasons for that. There was reduced consumer spending power, volatile trade policy, as we all know, declining international travelers, which that was kind of headlined by Canada was kind of the poster child for that, right? Boycotting travel to the US. And also, there have been ongoing issues with the perception of the US as just being a safe, accessible destination. So, our data is showing that actualized lowest hotel prices went negative year over year after Q1. So, after we got through Q1 of 2025, that's when the big drops really started to happen. And those sharpest declines were really in the dead of summer. So, for example, in July of 2025, pricing was down 7% year over year. And in August, it was down 5.6% year over year. Also, consumer confidence hit a 7-month low in November, and overseas visitors were down 2.5% year over year. So, if you're a US based hotelier, you probably know all of this without me telling you, but here's some data to kind of reassure you that yes, this indeed is a trend that's affecting the entire
You
US.
are not alone, to quote
Exactly.
Michael Jackson, right? I mean, that was a song, right? So moving on to number 4, uneven hotel pricing recovery takes shape in Asia. So Asia on the whole, opposite trajectory as we saw in the US. Almost a perfect mirror image. Initially poor year-over-year performance, shifting into positive territory towards the back end of 2025, and forward-looking rates by revenue managers are up for the next 90 days. Again, prolonged softness, strengthening demand, almost the opposite of what we saw in the United States. And I think a lot of this, to an extent, is also driven by the real wage growth. Unlike the US, Asia, world's highest real wage growth in 2025, 3.1%, which is almost double the global rate, which is crazy. But like I said, it's not even. Just for example, Vietnam, arrivals were up 21%, but pricing was down for the year. So it's not the same across the board, but there are definitely some signs of recovery. But again, the recovery remains fragile. It remains inconsistent, but there is momentum heading into 2026 that is finally positive after years of lagging really behind the US and Europe.
And Japan. Japan did really, really well, right? And
Yes.
I feel like everyone I know went to Japan this past
Right.
year.
Yeah. The Osaka festival really it was clearly a nice benefit for them. All right. So Daniel, number 5.
All right. Point number 5. AI makes major inroads into travel planning. So we're at a point now, late 2025, where you and probably everybody that you know has at least tried to use ChatGPT or is currently using ChatGPT. So it's getting a lot more popular for people to build their travel itineraries and make travel plans using generative AI. So an example of that would be, hey, I'm going to the Mediterranean next year for 8 nights. Build me a travel itinerary. And they plug that into ChatGPT and it spits something out. According to a Deloitte report that came out recently, 24% of travelers are expecting to use a tool like Gen AI for their holiday planning, which is up from 16% last year. AI is basically compressing and reshaping the booking funnel. And if you're a hotelier, you kind of need to think of AI as kind of like this gatekeeper of booking intent. So we're seeing all kinds of trends now with major OTAs that are trying to integrate into those AI ecosystems, seamlessly creating that transition from search to actually booking. And of course, there's a generational element to this as well, right? So younger generations are way more apt to use AI tools to book travel, but it's getting increasingly common for even older generations to at least dabble in it a little bit.
Yeah, and a growing trend because, like you said, if Gen Z and the millennials are the current core users, imagine what's going to happen as they become the core earners, the primary earners and moneymakers in this society. It's only going to grow. If you're a hotelier, this is your warning. This is when it's about to start. You have to make sure you're prepared for this. Next, we have revenue management gets integrated into total profit optimization. So 2025, it marked a rapid convergence of tech systems. We have PMS forecasting, channel management, all becoming kind of centrally integrated. And the integration enables total profit optimization, just moving beyond the rooms only metrics. Traditional KPIs like like RevPAR, I should say. I don't want to say they're being supplemented or overtaken, but like definitely supplemented, we'll say, by GoPAR, for example, a gross operating profit per available room. In today's society where direct bookings are harder and harder to come by, and operators are doing whatever they can to drive direct bookings because the OTA commissions are so high, they're looking at things like profitability, how to drive ancillary revenues that are at the property level. That way they can really maximize the profit, because they know that especially if it comes from an OTA, you're going to be hit on the back end with your booking commissions. So centralized platforms that are providing a single source of truth, those remove the barriers that have historically made total revenue management difficult. And teams now can measure profitability per guest stay. And at the end of the day, as properties diversify, revenue managers must expand their toolkit with flexible and profit-centric KPIs in this day and age. Daniel, why don't you bring us on home with number 7, automation as a solution to the labor squeeze. Labor, everyone's favorite topic, right? Because it's so easy to hire and find people, right? It's so easy.
So here's our last trend that we spotted for 2025. Yep, it's all about things like labor and automation. Labor shortages continued globally in 2025. So there's still a lot of unfilled hospitality jobs out there, which is in turn kind of driving increased adoption of automation, essentially. So automation for a lot of hoteliers is, increasingly becomes essential. But as always, these commercial teams, so revenue managers, people doing digital strategy, all of these roles, they're still being strained by a lot of the same manual, time-consuming tasks that they were 5 or even 10 years ago. So that's why automation continues to be really, really important for us as hoteliers. Speaking of automation and things that are being implemented, what did the guests like about automation, right? So there was recently this Hilton research that was put out that I thought was really, really good. And it includes some of the things that guests had a positive attitudes towards as far as automation. And it was 73% of guests that appreciated a digital check-in and check-out, and 65% welcomed mobile communication. So again, automation doesn't always have to be this negative thing. I don't know, some of you may have seen that meme where that guest tries to check in at the hotel and there's like the digital kiosk, and it's the guy who's checking them in over like a video feed. That was really funny.
Yeah.
But there are aspects of automation that the guests actually do appreciate, and those are certainly 2 of them. So that rounds out our list for what we saw in 2025. And now the exciting part that you're all waiting for is what the heck is going to go on in 2026?
Yes. And we are going to kick it off with number 1, a volatile travel and hospitality landscape. So based on what we're seeing now, the geopolitical instability will, at least to some extent, continue into 2026. How far it goes, I guess time will tell. But based on where we're at now, the geopolitical instability will generally at least continue to shape travel patterns to some extent into 2026. 2025 saw weakening demand in the United States due to declining consumer confidence and backlash from international travelers reacting to changing trade policies and entry policies. Government shutdowns in the U.S., disrupted flight schedules, that dampened travel performance. And it's beyond the U.S. I mean, it's China advised against travel to Japan due to diplomatic tensions. Pakistan and Cambodia saw tourism drop after, conflict events. The Russia-Ukraine conflict continued to affect Eastern European airspace. So at the end of the day, advertised H1 2026 pricing shows a fairly significant regional spread. Asia, we've talked about Asian pricing up about 8.5% in H1. Oceania is down 11-ish%. So, we see this spread. We see these uneven recoveries. The IMF's October economic outlook noted that the World Uncertainty Index hit a multi-year high by August 2025, just really underscoring the need for just real-time monitoring to an extent. So the volatile travel landscape, we at least are anticipating to continue into at least the near foreseeable term in 2026.
Yep. And future looking trend number 2, in addition to uncertainty, if you're a traveler, things are possibly also going to get a little bit more expensive. So traveler taxes are set to go upwards. Now, this ties in a lot with over tourism, which we're about to touch on a little bit more. But essentially, tourism taxes are becoming more and more widespread, especially in those marquee destinations that are really trying to cut down on the over-tourism or the perceived over-tourism that they have. So I'm going to rattle off a couple of quick ones that we're seeing. U.S. national parks are now implementing a new $100 fee for non-residents. In Kyoto, Japan, there's a tourism levy that's set to rise 300 to 900%, depending on the hotel nightly rate that you stay in. And then you have in Netherlands, a 12% VAT increase on overnight accommodations. In Catalonia, tourism tax scheduled to double. And then even the Louvre is getting hit with ticket prices to rise 45% for
If there's any
non-European.
If there's any
Exactly. If
artwork.
there's any artwork left in the museum, it's going to cost you more to go see that
Is
artwork.
that too soon? Should I not have said that, Daniel?
Long story short, and we're going to touch on this in just a bit, but that's why these off the beaten path destinations are getting more and more attractive, but more on that later. So I'll pass it off to you, Blake, for this third one for 2026.
So up next, we have the dispersion of seasonal demand. Daniel started hinting at it with the traveler taxes. That's one of the ways that we're going to combat over tourism. Now we're also talking about ways that the travelers themselves are trying to conquer the over-tourism issue. Travelers are responding to an extent by shifting when they travel. Skyscanner, they reported that 32% of tourists experienced negative effects from over-tourism, 34% want quieter destinations, 1% plan to travel and visit major destinations in shoulder seasons. Looking at what the ETC said, the European Travel Commission, their Q3 European tourism report found that among Europe's top 8 source markets, 28% expect to change their travel months to avoid crowds cited as the number one motivation. Our own data across Barcelona, Istanbul, Paris, Rome, and London shows that May to June and September through October are now outperforming July and August in occupancy for both hotels and short-term rentals. So the peak season is flattening, and we think that 2026 demand will potentially be more evenly spread across the year, which, I mean, for hoteliers, that's a good thing, right?
Exactly. Yep. Makes things more predictable. It spreads out that demand a little bit. And who knows, maybe now the peak season in places like Barcelona is going to become the shoulder season. So let's get into quality accommodation has high value for consumers. So the accommodation itself or the hotel itself is becoming a core reason for a lot of travelers. So Skyscanner found that 45% of travelers chose a destination because of the accommodation. So it's not just that people want to go to Paris and just go see the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe and the Louvre and all that stuff. They also want to stay in a really, really cool Parisian hotel, and they want that to be a big part of why they travel in the first place. There's also a generational aspect to this as well. For Gen Z, that figure rises up to 61%, say that the accommodation is a core reason for traveling. Another interesting thing, wellness is a core travel motivator, and that continues to rise as well. So Hilton found that rest and recharge is the number one travel motivator. 56% of travelers rank that as their number one. Also, Marriott did a survey of wealthy Asian travelers, and people say that wellness is in 90% of stays that they book is a core reason for them booking. So we also have some data that shows that independent hotels are outperforming branded hotels year over year for the H1 2026 pricing. And this all ties in together, right? More and more people are trying to get off the beaten path. They're trying to find a really cool, unique, luxury, independent hotel. So we're seeing luxury hotels and independent hotels really experiencing that strong pricing growth as we get into 2026. This is a big factor why.
Number 5, travelers look to express interests on vacation, but not at any cost. Experiences continue to outrank material goods as travel motivations. And if we look at Hilton's global travel survey, it found that 86% say experiences matter more than gifts. 72% want vacations centered on a personal passion, skill, or hobby. Daniel, that resonates true for me. You know, I'm a big board gamer. I go to 2 board game conventions a year that I fly to. I travel to Indianapolis and I travel to Las Vegas for board game conventions because I'm a cool guy. I mean, clearly it rings true to me for sure. 67% of millennials structure trips around events like sports or music or wellness, and 20% of travelers cites sporting events as their primary motivation for travel in 2026. It really comes down to Interests are definitely a core reason for traveling, but again, not at any cost. They're still seeking the value. They're still seeking to make sure that they can do what they want to do and have those experiences, but making sure that their travel is not going to break the bank, because again, value is key in this day and age. Kicking it back to you, Daniel. Number 6, great segue. Affordable fund boosts value destinations in Europe and Asia. Talk to us.
Travelers right now are seeking destinations that deliver relaxation and quality accommodation and also affordability. So we're seeing major uplifts in demand in the south of Europe, Mediterranean Europe, and in the southeast of Asia, where consumers can often find this combination. So we already hinted at this, but a lot of travelers are trying to get off that beaten path. They don't want to go stay in these markets that are getting hit with rising fees and levies and taxes and have this over tourism problem. I'll rattle off a quick list here of European locations that are looking really, really good for pricing growth. Places like Albania, Croatia, Cyprus, Hungary, Portugal, Slovenia. And then in Asia, you have destinations like Cambodia, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. And I think that this kind of all ties together with, as people look for these kind of hidden gem destinations, takes them to places where they're more likely to stay in an independent hotel. And sure enough, that's kind of that product class that is seeing that good rate growth into 2026. And then also too, there's this benefit from Asia's improving consumer spending that Blake talked about earlier, right? The higher than average, higher than global average real wage growth, which is kind of also adding some fuel to the fire here.
AI is here to stay. AI's role in travel planning, it expanded dramatically in 2025, and we think it'll accelerate further in 2026. Hilton said that 61% of travelers find AI valuable for planning. I think that's only going to go up over time. Skyscanner said 54% of people feel confident using AI, which is 7 percentage points up year over year. 32% are comfortable using AI to compare hotels and flights. And again, confidence, to echo what you said before, Daniel, confidence is much higher among Gen Z, 70%, and in markets like India, which is at 86%, and Brazil, which is at 81%. AI beyond that is shifting from planning to booking. We see these things popping. We see Booking and Expedia are now integrated with ChatGPT. OpenAI's software development kit enables hotels to connect directly for AI-driven bookings. And we really think that 2026 will mark the first major wave of hotel distribution migrating into AI ecosystems. So right now, there's like this explosive race among hoteliers to connect with consumers and take their bookings through AI. And that will accelerate exponentially, we think, in 2026. So it's really just this explosive race for hoteliers to connect with consumers and take their bookings through AI. And we think that will really exponentially accelerate in 2026. I mean, case in point, we here at Lighthouse, we're helping consumers do this with our product, Connect AI, to make hotels booking channels, their direct booking channels, visible to AI. So it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a hot button topic. And we think it'll continue only to grow further in 2026.
Yep. And that ties together really nicely with blended booking channels. So as you just said, Blake, social media, OTAs, and AI tools are converging into this blended booking landscape. Pandora's box has been opened, for better or for worse. And now we're kind of seeing what that's going to look like in 2026. So a couple of quick examples would be that TikTok plus Booking.com integration. Also, too, you have things like Instagram plus Expedia trip matching using those reels to power bookable AI suggestions. And then, of course, you have Airbnb, which is expanding aggressively right now, targeting more independent hotels and bed and breakfasts and evolving its fee structure to keep up with the major hotel OTA players.
So direct bookings, obviously incredibly important in a world where OTA commissions are so high. And one of the ways to really do that is this hyper personalization trend that we see. We see personalization really moving from optional to essential in 2026 as traveler expectations and tech capabilities kind of converge. Travelers, especially higher income travelers and younger demographics, increasingly are demanding unique and tailored experiences. And really, personalization opportunities, they span the gamut. It could be custom room attributes, it could be amenity bundles, it could be local experiences integrated into booking flows. I feel like it's been a trend actually like for a while now. And I think it's been that way because it's hard to do that. It's hard if you're a lower end property potentially, or you think you're perceived as a lower end property or a more budget option, or even if you're a higher end hotel, it's hard to achieve the personalization that people want. And so if you're sitting there and you're wondering, I get the theory of what you're talking about, but what do I do? How do I actually take the next step in achieving personalization? Well, I'll do a 6-second shameless product plug, okay? I recommend checking out Lighthouse's solution because we have a solution for this exact purpose. It's called Direct Channel Personalization from Lighthouse. We'll drop a link in the chat right now. Check it out. This is literally what it does. It helps hotels achieve that personalization that travelers want. Okay, that's about it. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Daniel, I will kick it over to you to discuss the era of connected hotel technology.
All right, here is the final trend that we have spotted for 2026. So we're calling this the era of connected hotel technology. So as we go into 2026, keep in mind that a fully connected tech stack is basically going to be a requirement at this point to compete in this fragmented discovery and booking landscape that's going on right now, right? There's AI out there, there's the traditional ways of booking, and it's all kind of melding and blending together. So hotels need to start unifying these data flows across these different guest touch points along the booking journey, from the inspiration step to that post-stay communication with guests. So APIs, cloud-based systems, those can make integration more achievable than ever. Here at Lighthouse, we provide all those integrated solutions across front of house, AI, personalization, distribution, automated pricing, all of that good stuff. So we're here at the very, very end. Coming up on the screen now, there is a survey. If you guys are interested in seeing how our commercial platform can benefit you or your property, that's going to pop up for a couple of seconds. And all you have to do is just click yes on that and someone will reach out to you. So that brings us to the end of this podcast episode and this live debut if you are watching live. So I hope that you got something good out of these trends that we gave you for 2025 and our predictions looking ahead for 2026. And we hope that next year, 2026, will be a great year for all of our hotel partners. Lastly, I will kick it over to you, Blake, just to send us on home.
Thank you guys for joining us so much. It's a pleasure as always. We will see you guys next time. Signing off, my name is Blake Ryder.
I'm Daniel Foreman.
And this has been the Spotlight Live Video Podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.